Greetings and salutations, comrades. Hope this finds you well. Apologize for the slightly raspy voice here. I don't know, maybe some of you like it. Just getting over a bit of some seasonal allergies here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's a pretty interesting article on the Dissidents Substack titled Khanna, the biggest fraud in the squad. So let's take a look. And you know, I frankly I agree with all the points they're making in this. Khanna has had some really horrible votes as of lately, not to mention talking about how, you know, Bill Kristol is some champion of, you know, neoliberal democracy when he was a huge, you know, proponent of the Iraq war, for example, you know, and all these other really, you know, just disgusting, you know, positions that he has taken, and just always ready and willing to, you know, defend the Democratic Party, you know, even when they're, you know, completely abandoning the working class and all the policy decisions, right? Khanna has been a big figure within the progressive left, to what extent that actually exists, you know, in the U.S., right? And at face value, understandably so, he's done some good working to fighting against the war in Yemen, which again Biden just agreed to another huge arms deal to Saudi Arabia, which supposedly that's supposed to help. That was their rationale. It's a story for a different day. But a deeper look at his voting record and statements and interviews show he's far from it in reality and is imperialist and a tool of the Democratic establishment. You know, all these politicians are, though, right, to one extent or another. Khanna is often portrayed as an anti-war politician, but his record shows otherwise in many instances. Most recently, voted for the Renouncer Act, a bill which will impose crushing sanctions on Nicaragua, designed to crush the economy and hurt ordinary people in Nicaragua, because to support U.S. regime change efforts. And kudos to the other members of the squad; they actually voted against that. As I detail in my latest article, this is part of a larger campaign for regime change in Nicaragua. This, again, goes back decades, but this point is not the first time Roe has voted for right-wing or neoliberal legislation. He voted to expand Trump's spying powers in 2019 with his vote to reauthorize the Patriot Act. He voted for a resolution condemning BDS movement. It's the boycott, divest, sanction movement on against the apartheid state of Israel. He voted to give $1 billion to fund Israel's Iron Dome, along with Jamal Bowman. He voted for new NAFTA, for the NATO Support Act, as did AOC, it should be pointed out, for sanctions on Iran and North Korea, and for the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Again, that's a lot of fucked up shit just right there in that one paragraph, right? Someone who supports brutal sanctions, the Patriot Act, NAFTA, funding Israel and NATO sounds far closer to a Clintonite Democrat than any kind of progressive. This voting record definitely puts Roe's spinelessness into perspective. Iran's ballistic missiles and International Sanctions Act, Otto Warmbier North Korean Nuclear Sanctions Act, countering. I mean, look at that, dude. Just those alone, right? You obviously support of, you know, U.S. imperialism and regime change, and just by that definition, even though, you know, progressive is a very kind of amorphous and meaningless term, you ain't fucking progressive. These things are very regressive, and they hurt, you know, the most vulnerable, marginalized people in those countries disproportionately, right? That's kind of the goal of U.S. imperialism, to make these sanctions and these regime change efforts to make life in those countries so fucked up, so unlivable, so deadly, you know, ongoing basis for the working class, that they would, you know, overthrow their socialist left-leaning governments, right? So unbelievably spineless. Credit to Roe, he will go on independent media, unlike the rest of the fraud squad. Fortunately, when he does this, he exposes extreme lengths. He'll go to lick establishment boots. When asked by independent journalist Jordan Chariton of Status Quo about Assange case, Khanna responded by saying he thought the indictment was overboard, overbroad, and vague, but that people who encourage hacking should be prosecuted. Again, there's no fucking evidence. And again, have you heard any politicians actually within the U.S. speak up for Assange? I sure as haven't. The silence has been fucking deafening. It's disgusting. When Chariton pushed back, saying there's no evidence Julian Assange ever encouraged someone to hack, all Khanna had to say was no, was to repeat what he thought the indictment was overbroad. This was clearly Khanna signaling to the establishment he would repeat their false propaganda on Assange and not speak up against the unconstitutional prosecution against him. Ro Khanna obviously somehow missed the massive bombshell story that provoked the main witness in the Assange case, who claimed he was encouraging people to hack, was lying for a pardon by the FBI. When pressed by progressive media hosts Kalinske and Ball on why progressives did not force a $15 minimum wage vote into the American Rescue Plan, he said he didn't because the president pushed back. Then how about you push back against the president? But again, this is, as this paragraph points out, so unbelievably spineless, right? And some people thought it was obstructionist. So this, again, go along to get along. Don't want to upset party leadership. Don't overturn the apple cart. I might piss off Pelosi. I might piss off Biden. I might piss off Schumer. I might piss off my corporate donors. Like these fucking people only care about one thing, and not staying in power, right? This clearly shows he's not willing to fight anything if Biden and the corporate Dems do not allow it. When asked what progressives' current strategy to get a $15 minimum wage was, he replied by saying it has to be part of a must-pass bill, but if it's at $12, he would not vote against it, and that he was working with imperialist Russiagate grifter Adam Schiff to get a significant increase to the federal minimum wage. Again, this shows how he refused to use his leverage and will always cave and work within the corrupt Democratic establishment. I mean, guaranteed, he's going to vote for that watered down fucking, crumbs, if that, right? 1.75 trillion reconciliation bill, right? His final comment in this interview segment turned into self-parody when he said writing a letter to Kamala Harris asking to overturn the parliamentarian was pushing the envelope. I don't even feel I need to comment on this, as its pathetic spinelessness speaks on its own. Agreed. Khanna took his spinelessness to a new level in an interview with Brianna Joy Gray, where he claimed the watered-down 1.75 trillion reconciliation bill was significant, a significant piece of dog shit, maybe, and that somehow was not incrementalism, despite the fact that every tangible policy, which was arguably incrementalism, well, it definitely was incrementalism to begin with, has been stripped from the bill. Expanding Medicare to cover vision and dental was taken out, 2-year community college, paid family leave, paid time off, negotiating prescription drug prices, and the list goes on and on. All of that shit, which was, again, incremental to begin with, completely tossed away. But somehow, to this absolute Democratic establishment hack, it's still significant. Get the fuck out of here. Later in the interview, Khanna thought he went overboard in saying that Kristen Sinema is not transparent, that Joe Manchin has been transparent, and only his ideology has been different from his own. He thinks Manchin can be convinced if he believes jobs will be brought. Are you fucking kidding me? The only thing Joe Manchin cares about is Joe Manchin and his fucking corporate benefactors, you absolute fucking hack. This was a shocking development, Khanna's bootlicking, because it showed he was not only afraid to call it corporate Dems, but has softened even the most right-wing and openly corrupt blue dog Democrats. Khanna continued his spinelessness later on when he said to MSNBC that he would vote for the 1.75 trillion reconciliation package without concessions, making sure to add an extra layer of DNC bootlicking by saying, quote, "President has shown patient and extraordinary leadership." Oh my fucking God, dude. It's so hard to read this, right? But Khanna does not only enjoy the taste of Democratic establishment boots, but often pairs it with the nice side of war criminal boots. He called war criminal Bill Kristol, quote, "one of the most thoughtful voices in defending liberalism and democratic institutions in our country," and praised Colin Powell after his death, saying he crossed party lines and inspired millions of young people across our nation. Again, Bill Kristol, huge proponent of the hugely disastrous Iraq War. Colin Powell, also war criminal in his own right for what he did in Vietnam and his lies that led, to the Iraq War. Similar to most progressives within the Democratic Party, Rose just a tool of the Democratic establishment, imperialism, but probably the worst of all of them. He often gets a pass from progressives because he had a reputation of being anti-war and super progressive at certain time, but his record and statements show otherwise. And again, all the role of the so-called progressives within the Democratic Party is to run cover for the Democrats. Say, look, we got a few of us in here. We're working for change. There's no need to organize, a third party. We're gonna get Medicare for all in 100 or 150 years, maybe. The next time around we could get a few more crumbs, but we're doing stuff. We're doing stuff, guys. We support capitalism and imperialism, but look, you got a few crumbs, and next time there'll be a few more. I mean, give me a fucking break. Wake up. Stop donating money to these politicians. Donate it. Give your time and resources to mutual aid, helping people in your community that actually need it. These people aren't fucking helping anybody. They're not looking out for the best interest of the working class, whether in the imperial core or outside of it. They're just a fucking joke at this point. And more people are starting to wake up and realize that, right? Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe to the Dissident Substack. They put out a lot of amazing material. Quick shout out to the 2 Uber comrades supporting my channel and this content, Patreon, my partner, and Independent Left News. Definitely check them out. They're a great resource. Peace.